Us farmers, we just never have enough pockets. Pockets stuffed with this 21st century contrivance. I did remember to turn off my, what do you call it? My cellular telegraph?
I don't know anything about those things.
My sky telegraph. My carry-around sky. I call it my carry-around sky telegraph. My name is William Randolph. My name is William Henry Randolph. I am a farmer. This is the wife. Say hello to Emma there.
Hello.
I was born in Missoula in 1872, which I found to be a rather small and crowded place in the 1870s, and so I was able to prevail upon my entire family, my brother Elmer, my sister Sarah, and my parents, to move out west with me to where they were fixing to make a new state out of this territory. That's the state around which the spot upon which you are all standing. I'm talking, of course, about the state of Montana. We arrived just about the same time. We come up the Missouri on a steamboat, and we first came to rest in Billings, where my pap briefly dabbled in the stagecoach stop business before we eventually moved on to a town called White Sulphur Springs. Now, I don't know if you can imagine what a bustling, exciting place White Sulphur Springs was around the turn of the century. Health-minded tourists were flocking to White Sulphur Springs to avail themselves of the town's healing mineral waters. Now, my family and I thought that it might be some kind of idea to see if we could make a dime off that, and we got into the hostelry business. My sister was working at the hostel, my pap was working at the hostel, my brother, all working at a big grand hotel there in White Sulphur Springs. I was working at the assay office. I was a handsome young bachelor. Was I not?
Yes, you were.
And then the good Lord did contrive to place a very special obstacle in my path with which to contend. And that special obstacle, of course, that's the wife, Emma Hansen at the time.
Special obstacle?
Well, I say that with affection, dear. You know that.
Yes, I'm Emma Hansen from White Sulphur Springs, from a very prominent family in White Sulphur Springs. I was with the first class at the University of Montana, graduated with a teaching degree, and could have become a teacher. I'm quite intelligent, as I'm sure my husband will agree
That
with.
was one of the things that first made me take a shine to you, was your keening intelligence.
Thank you. Thank you.
I also noticed that you did not draw back from telling me what to do, generally all of the time.
Nope. I think that I probably knew best most of the time. I decided teaching wasn't for me. I wasn't wanting to go the professional route. I wanted a family and I wanted a farm. And so I figured I could talk this guy into doing the same thing, although he had other ideas.
I did require a bit of convincing. I took a shine to Emma right away upon meeting her. We were married in 1900. We took us a honeymoon to exotic Lewiston, Idaho, if you can imagine such a thing, in a horse-drawn wagon. That was grand.
That was amazing.
Well, we come down in Missoula shortly thereafter. We started living here around 1901 or so, and it was not an easy place for me to find my feet. I found myself wandering all over the state, doing an odd job for the fellow over there, and doing this and doing that, and just running all over back and beyond. I missed the boys. I missed the family terrible.
We had two boys. We'd had two boys. By 1901, we had our first child,
Yep,
Keith.
Keith come along, and then in
1903, yes.
Robert come along. And then in 1911, of course, we had a little gift from the cosmos in the form of Bill Jr.
Yes.
I miss my boys. So, well, Emma had this idea. I noticed that my grand scheme of inventing things, kind of a putterer by inclination. I mentioned I am a farmer by circumstance and not by inclination. I always kind of had that mechanical puttering turn of mind. I thought that I could find me $1 million idea that would just make us. I had a grand idea for a thresher binder. And I took the train all the way out to Wall. You remember that time I took this was the biggest trip. This you could say was the biggest.
Do I ever remember this trip?
You might say this was her last indulgence of my puttering fantasies, but I took me the train to Washington, D.C. to meet with a patent clerk over my $1 million idea. Now it turns out that my $1 million patent idea would actually have required 5 different patent applications, 5 different sets of drawings. I never did find the time or the money to do all that myself.
And he had to borrow $25 from the patent officer to get home.
Darling, you told him you weren't gonna. You told me you weren't gonna tell him that.
Sorry, honey.
I had to borrow money from that same patent clerk to get home on the same train. Arriving home in Missoula with the last of my dignity and shreds around my ankles, I decided maybe I better listen to what the wife's idea was for something more, what do you call it in the 21st century? Something more sustainable. Well, and here was her idea. As I mentioned, I was a bit suspect at first.
Well, we found that we'd heard of a little spot up in the North Hills that was originally homesteaded by the Moon family, and they sold it to their other Moon family, and they were selling it again. And so we took a look at it, and it wasn't the best piece of land. It wasn't down in the valley. It was up on a hill. And,
awful steep and hilly.
You know, had its challenges, but it sure, for $1,900, it sure looked like a place we could call home.
With no down payment and just a little bit of money, a little at a time over the course of a great many years, which I think we paid it all off, didn't we?
We finally paid it all off, yeah.
Well, in any event. Well, that had its ups and downs, as I'm sure you can imagine. Some of the downs being, well, the freezing winters, that's one of the downs. The critters, I lost a lot. You lost a lot of poultry.
We lost lots of chickens. I initially started, my idea with farming really took off with the chickens. I wanted to raise a lot of chickens, and I did. I raised hundreds of chickens and produced hundreds of eggs, and we had plenty of customers down on the north and west side that we would sell produce to through our cassava wagon.
That worked out all right.
Bill would come down every day except Sunday and sell his produce to folks down here in Missoula, and
dozens of household
turned a
accounts.
profit.
We turned a small profit.
We turned a small profit.
But beyond that, our willingness to barter and the ability that we had to take products that we'd created or grown or otherwise procured and trade them towards the commodities that we needed that we might not have had cash to buy, well, that is what essentially got us through the teeth of this minor economic setback that you know today as the Great Depression.
Mm-hmm.
And furthermore, during that time, it was known that the Randolph Ranch, such was the abundance that if a fella was hungry, he could always find a bite to eat up there. If a fella didn't have a place to rest his head, well, there's a bunkhouse up there. Now, I had to make you work a little bit for your keep, but
sure,
we became known. We were known as fair. I think we were known as fair and welcoming,
generous folks,
hospitable. Yeah, I think I would do that again. Now, there were some down times. Remember that time that it did not rain for an entire summer?
It did not rain from May to August, through August. And then when it did finally precipitate, it hailed.
Yeah. I was in such a state I had to make a note of that on the side of the barn in my pencil.
Yeah.
Which could be read almost 100 years later.
Yes, it can.
Long after we were dead.
Yep.
Boy, it is strange to sit around here talking about both of us being dead, isn't it? Well, before we died, we had a good life. We raised the boys. We stayed there, my goodness, almost 50 years. Had we not both died 6 months apart in 1956, we would have been there for 50 years. We raised our boys, we made an honest living, we made improvements upon the land. We had some good horses. Pat and Babe, the last two of our draft horses, they died a little bit after we did in the 1960s. Oh yeah, and such
Our youngest son, William, continued on at the homestead.
Now, he made some smart decisions. What did he do? He made that real smart decision about the final disposition of that property.
He did.
He agreed to sign it over in a conservation easement so that future generations of Missoulians, such as yourselves, could continue to come walking over that hill. To get there, by the way, you just start at that sort of bear menagerie, that pit that they got where you can see the bears over in Greeno Park. Just hike over the hills, and you eventually drop right down in the property. We encourage you to do so. That's thanks to our youngest, our little surprise baby, you could say, that we that today's Missoulians are able to come over and enjoy much the same view that we ourselves saw upon seeing it for the first time in 1907. Yes. It is quite a special place. It is quite a special place.
Open to the public on Saturdays from the months of May through October. And then by appointment, you can always call, and the caretakers.
You can see a lot of my handiwork. A lot of we left behind a lot of things. Places in the shop where we measured the heights of our little nieces. Yes. You can still see where we did that. You can come up and see the benches that I made and the buildings and all these different things.
The orchard.
There's even a couple big thick folders or folios, you might say, of all my invention ideas and the letters I wrote to the State Department and the War Department with all my grand ideas. Now those damn fool kids they got living up there now taking care of the place, they're using some of them as their interior decoration. That mousette plan for my torpedo exploder, never thought that would be considered. Never thought that would be considered art or something worthy of grace in a living room. But well, when you got one big room, I guess you can't make those kinds of distinctions, can you?
No, you sure can't.
Well, what do we do up there for fun, darling?
Well, I
knit a little bit.
I knit a little bit, and William here plays the musical saw.
It is also said that I like a drink. I have been known to like a drink. I'm not saying one way or the other, but let's just say that I got me an orchard with 75 trees in it and a cider press, and a little bit of discretionary time on my hands when the wife's not looking.
Well, William, are you going to play your song or what?
I think I'm going to eat one of them sugar biscuits you got there. All right.
And then you'll...
Right. When in doubt, you just gotta, not even when in doubt, it's just good policy to defer to the wife's opinion no matter what. Don't have to tell you fellas that. Well, I'm gonna play you a song now. This is called My Country 'Tis of Thee. It's a great way to while away the hours up there on the homestead, you know. What with the chilly evenings and skunks and coyotes and wolves howling at the door and, oh yeah.
Long winters.
Yeah, rabid raccoons hurling themselves repeatedly at the outhouse door. Stuck in there for hours one time. I thought it was a big old grizzly bear. Turned out it was just a little badger. Anyway, moving on. A little song called My Country 'Tis of Thee. Thank you very much. Come pay us a visit up on that homestead. I still can't get over calling it the homestead. I want to call it the Randolph Ranch. Well, come see us. You know how to get there. You can read all about it. How do you say? Online.
Online.
That's another magical sky thing that I don't understand since I died in 1956. But, well, your sons and daughters will help you negotiate this interweb thing. All right, thank you much.
Thanks a lot.